This channel is supported by Truefire. Truefire.
Stop all that. The Truefire All Access membership, they've brought the price down for March Madness, they're calling it. So the cheapest you can get it any time of year is $99. It beats the codes that I normally tell you about. So I just wanted to shout that out here. So you get All Access membership for $99 for the year. You know, get into your Tim Millers, your Robin Fords, there's Larry Carlton stuff on there, there's Eric Johnson stuff on there. Like, all of our favourite players seem to have Truefire courses. Check that out. March Madness, it's mad. Okay, so this month I've been specifically focusing on Fender guitars. After the Fender Standard, which I've since sold, I kind of thought it'd be interesting to see what these Fender guitars are kind of like. So I bought 1, 2, 3, 4. I've borrowed 3 others. So does that make 7 Fender guitars that I've tried in the last sort of 7 weeks? Something like that. And I thought I had some kind of conclusions to come to that may or may not be interesting, and I guess some of it would be quite obvious. Some of it I think is less obvious unless you've tried a few. Anyway, here's an intro kind of sprinkling through a selection of these guitars. conclusion I've kind of come to from this is that at the moment Fender don't particularly care about the weight of their guitars. So for instance, none of these guitars stands out as being particularly lightweight except for the Player 2, which is chambered, so it doesn't really count. You can see here, I think, that this looks to me like it's quarter sawn maple. This is a 2022 custom shop, you know, getting on to like £4,600 guitar, I think, is something like what they would have cost new. And this has been sorted for weight, so this is supposedly sort lightweight alder, and it's still £7 13 ounces. And all of the other guitars are somewhere around that. Now, for me, if I paid a company this kind of money for a guitar and asked them to sort for lightweight, I'd be looking probably, hoping that the guitar would come somewhere around £7 7 ounces or slightly under. It's not necessarily a deal breaker, but it's one of those things where it just seems like, and if you look on like Peach websites, it's the number of guitars that they've got there across all of the Fender price ranges. I think they tend to be a little on the heavy side. As a counter to that though, and possibly because Fender are listening to some people talk about this, they've actually chambered the ash on the Player 2 in this specific guitar. So this is a very lightweight guitar, and it does, I think, make a difference to how the guitar actually feels when you pick it up and play it. Tonally, I'm not sure it makes a huge difference, and if you're gigging a guitar, I think it makes a significant difference as well. For me, it's just a personal thing where if I'm spending a chunk of money on a guitar, I'm hoping that the further up in the price range you go, that the more selective Fender are going to be about the wood that they're using. One other thing that's happened, I think, is that there's basically not really any American ash anymore because there was a disease, right? So they're using some other types of wood. So you see some sassafras, and this is pine, which kind of has quite a nice look to it. This is the American Professional 2. The real key point that I've kind of concluded is that wherever you land in the Fender price range, if you go down one from it, what I found is that it basically makes that other guitar feel like a toy. So I first noticed this when I picked up the Fender Player 2, and what I kind of noticed was that compared to the Fender Standard, which is their now Indonesian made entry level, the Player 2 just felt like a more grown-up guitar. It felt better in the hands, it felt like it stayed in tune better, and it felt just more like a more substantial guitar. Then Vintera 2, and that sort of ruined the Player 2 for me a bit, because this then had a more substantial neck. And it wasn't so much a tonal difference. It was more how it felt in the hand, and that the 60s style neck shape of the Vintera 2 to me felt more substantial, and it just felt comfortable to play, and more comfortable to play. And then when I go back to the Player 2 after playing that, like a bit of a toy, because the neck is skinnier. Then going from like the Player 2 to the Professional 2, the neck is slightly chunkier again, not massively. This is, they call it a deep C, I think it's not really. And if I go between playing an American Professional 2 to the Player 2, it feels like a step down again in terms of being like a slightly kind of toyish feeling guitar. Obviously, like, these are all pretty good quality guitars, in general, it's just like that feeling switching between the two where you can really feel that there's some kind of Goldilocks quality to like the slightly more expensive model, or the more expensive model. Then you pick up a custom shop and it's like, okay, well this has got this bare wood on the back which kind of feels comfortable. You look at it aesthetically, it's much more pleasing, and it's also got an even chunkier neck again. And now when I go back down the range again, really kind of notice like this modern feeling neck just feels to some extent more like a toy when I play it. It's not that the fret job is bad or anything like that either. I think it's mostly down to neck shape. You know, the pickups on all of these examples sound pretty good. And the real conclusion that I came to was, when you balance this sort of premium feeling neck to price ratio, the Vintera kind of wins out as being in this sweet spot. If you get a good one, where it kind of has this neck that feels more comfortable under £1,000 price. And so you don't quite get the same feeling as with some of the others, where it's like, just feels like a step down from what came before. It just feels like the other guitar, two Fenders that I played, I think the Fender Road Worn 60s that I played is another really fantastic guitar. So I would suggest that maybe considering picking up a Vintera if you're going like in a shop or whatever, and seeing for yourself like how you feel like these things compare. And if you can get your hands on an older Fender Mexican Road Worn, I think the Road Worn 60s in particular, for me, stands above all of these guitars here as being like a really good bang for buck option. An American Professional 2, which for me the neck is a little on the skinny side and it's 2-point trem. The Player 2, the neck is definitely too skinny. The Vintera 2, the neck is pretty spot on. I like a 6-point trem. It gets a lot of things really right for me. The 59 Custom Shop is of course like a very high premium guitar, so I think, you know, at that kind of money you'd be expecting it to be really good. But also the Fender Road Worn 60s, I think, kind of combines some of the things that I really like about the Vintera, but also with that nitro on there and some of that vibe where you're basically getting not that dissimilar to Custom Shop in terms of feel and stuff like that. So I think that's kind of what I've taken away from trying all these Fender guitars. I hope you've somewhat enjoyed the journey. there's still some more videos to come on this and more comparisons, but I think that's kind of my overall feeling about these Fender guitars now, is I kind of understand the range a bit more. As you go further down, you're kind of getting guitars that are really good for the money, or pretty good for the money, but there'll be something that's just not quite right, like the Player 2, the Neck 2 Skinny, or the American Professional 2 when I compare it to the more expensive custom shop stuff. It's this neck is actually like a bit wide feeling and not quite so comfortable. The Vintera doesn't have so many of those kind of things, and so coming to it from a guitar at any price, to me, it actually feels pretty good. And that's not that easy to do. And it's also not that easy, I guess, for Fender to have segmented things in this way, so that at each price point you really do notice the difference between guitars. So I guess that's quite a clever thing that they're doing. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. What's your favourite of the Fender range? What's your best Fender bang for buck thing? I think best bang for buck for me seems to be the Vintera, which is kind of got this really pretty comfortable neck shape, which is feeling a bit more expensive because it's thicker, but also, you know, it's pretty good value for money, I think. The other suggestion that I might make would be the Fender Road Worn 60s that I tried. I think even is a step above this and is not far off custom shop in terms of quality. It was lighter than the custom shop that I borrowed off of Anthony. So here we have a Player 2 at £700, a Vintera 2 about £800, a Professional 2 about £1,000 more than the other two, and then a custom shop which is starting off around 3, stuff closer to 4 or 5. None of these are particularly defective guitars at all. Like, you get a lot for your money with the Player 2. I think the Vintera 2, the neck shape suits me way better. The Professional 2, actually, I think I prefer the Vintera 2, if anything. Professional 2, the neck satin feel makes it feel kind of like the Player 2 in hand. And then you get to the custom shop and they do things like relicking and bits and pieces like that. But not only that, the thing that they also seem to do is use more reasonably chunky necks, which suit me really well. The other thing is that I think you can notice the difference when you look at them up in hand. The custom shop just looks better in your hands, basically, but from slightly further away, I don't think there's much in it at all.